Good morning. My name's Ed Armentrout, and I'm the pastor here at Avondale United Methodist Church. This is the message for January the 7th, 2024. So the scripture I'm going to read from today is Matthew. It's chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, which is the visit of the wise men. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born the King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay homage to him." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them when the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is the shepherd, my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. They sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay homage to him." When they heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another way. And so Jesus is born in Bethlehem. If you go there today, they have built a church over his place of birth. It's called the Church of Nativity. Bethlehem is it's still, even today, is a pretty small town about 6 miles south of Bethlehem or of Jerusalem. And even though, as we deal with the conflict in Israel now, you may not be aware, but on the east side of Israel, which they call the West Bank because it's the West Bank of the Jordan, they've built a very large wall that must be 20 feet tall to separate Israel from the West Bank. Bethlehem is on the West Bank side of that. So when you go to Bethlehem now and this Christmas, because of what was going on, they didn't allow visitors. You go through that gate on the other side of the wall, and that's where Bethlehem sits today. So Bethlehem was known as the city of David. And when you go to that Church of Nativity, when we look at our nativity sets, and I'm going to talk about those a couple times today, we have the baby Jesus in what we consider a manger. Now, it is unlikely that the baby was really born in a manger because that nativity place is more like a cave under the church. So when you go down the stairs, the way it's built, you're forced to be slightly kneeled over, which I think is appropriate because you're going there to worship where the child was born. And so because so many animals have been there before, even though I said it was a cave, it's been licked smooth because that's where the animals would have fed in the past. So when we talk about the wise men, sometimes they're called magi. They were priests from the area. They were men of holiness and wisdom. Their primary skills were in philosophy, medicine, and natural science. Now, later on in their history, they end up becoming what we would consider charlatans. They become fortune tellers and sorcerers. But at that time, they were really considered great religious leaders and also medical leaders as well. So Herod the Great, and there are lots of Herods in this time that we read about, but this particular Herod was Herod the Great. And he is worried about losing his power to this new king because Jewish people really expected the Messiah to come as a king and put Israel back in its authority, not under Roman authority. Herod the Great was able to keep peace in the area. He did a lot of building projects, and in some ways, he could be kind to the people. So when things were tough, he would cancel taxes when people didn't have it. The story goes that at one time he sold a personal gold plate, and then he gave that money to the people. So like most of us, there's some good to us and some bad to us, no matter how good or bad we are. Herod had a pretty dark side. He could be insanely suspicious. He was so suspicious that he had his wife and her mother killed, one of his wives. He also killed his oldest son and two of his younger brothers because he was afraid they were going to try to take his position. He got worse as he got older, and so one of the things that he realized that upon his death, nobody was going to be sad. Nobody was going to cry. They just wanted him to be gone. So he wanted people to say that people cried on his death. So what he did, he rounded up the well-respected citizens of the area, kind of kept them captive. And the order was that when he died, they were all to be killed. And that way people could say that upon his death, everyone around him cried. And so we have these different groups of people that are all coming to Jesus in their own way. So with Herod, he is extremely hostile, and he hates even the thought of a Messiah. The priests and the scribes of the time, we don't even read about, they're indifferent. And then the wise men or the magi, they come with adoring worship. Now, I said earlier I was going to talk about manger sets two different ways. One of the things we do in our manger sets, besides putting the baby Jesus in what we consider a manger, is the three kings are always there at his birth. That is probably not likely. Those kings probably came a couple years later. But because we see those manger sets, and we see baby Jesus in a manger, and we see the three wise men always there, because we see that over and over again, that's what we think really happens. So the last thing I want to talk about today are the gifts. So they bring three gifts, and I don't know if you've ever thought about if those gifts have any kind of meaning, but they do. So the gift of gold was the gift that you would give a king. And so they were clearly recognizing the baby Jesus as a king. Frankincense was the gift for a priest. Now, the whole idea of a priest is one who creates a bridge between God and man. So it's a way for us to be able to communicate with God because we're not able, at least that was the belief then, of able to do it on our own. And the last one is myrrh. And what myrrh was used for then, if you've ever had a chance to smell it, is a very strong smell. And what it was really about was to cover up the smell of death, to keep people from smelling the body as it began to decay. And so they recognized not only Jesus as the king, Jesus as the priest between us and God, but also one who God sent to die for us. So here at Avondale, a couple of things I'd like to tell you. Our services are Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We have a community meal that is served either by us or a couple other churches that help us at 5 p.m. on every Thursday. And that usually runs till about 6 o'clock or till the food's out, whichever comes first. You certainly would be welcome to attend Avondale United Methodist Church. We'd love to have you here. We are located at the corner of 10th and Sampson and Muncie. The parking is in the back of the lot. This Saturday morning as I videotape this, it snowed. It's a beautiful day out, but they're clearing the parking lot now. So one of the things you can always be assured of is that when you get here, you're going to be able to walk in easily from the parking lot. If you have any questions about Avondale, if you have anything I can help you with, I may be reached at 765-749-4354. Again, my number is 765-749-4354, and my name is Ed Armentrout, and we certainly welcome you to Avondale United Methodist Church.